So my wife came to me the other day and we're having a fight. She's like, why do you keep doing what God tells you to do? And I was like, well, I have a fairly strong spirituality. She's like, what are you talking about? I was like, well, what religion do you think I am? She's like, you're an atheist. I'm like, wow, this is an interesting response from my wife. It's very difficult for her because some of the things that I do don't work logically. They don't even work particularly on a feeling level. But on a spiritual level, they work for me. Even when it causes significant difficulties with my wife. And so she comes out and goes, you're an atheist. It's actually been a pretty difficult path for us. I discovered spirituality in 2005. Had a fairly direct experience that there was something beyond this material world. By 2007, I was doing some workshops and had some very odd experiences that were unexplainable. I've been through med school I did science 95 to 97, then med school 98 to 2001. I'm been a doctor for, maybe 6 years. And I come in, I get told about this spiritual healer guy. So I'm like, oh, whatever, I'll go in. And it's Sunday morning. We've been going since Friday night, Saturday, and I get the feeling of what's going on. I'm like watching these people declare the problems in their lives and share within that group. And there was a confidentiality agreement, so it wasn't going anywhere. But I watched them lay out their problems, and then they would do some processing around that. But it got to me, and at this point, my life was pretty, I don't know, I'd been through some stuff. My parents had been divorced in quite a painful experience, watching them divorce. My father had actually had years and years of chronic pain. In 1987, when I was 10, he went to the dentist and had a needle placed into his tooth, but they couldn't get it. So they did it again and they didn't get it. And then they did it a third time, but this time they hit the lingual nerve and injected with the adrenaline and the local, and he got a neuroma. And therefore half of his tongue after that felt like it was on fire, and he went off to the States and had experimental surgery back in, this must have been like in 88, 89. And it fundamentally altered my parents. Who they were before that time and who they were after that time were two entirely different things. It was a significant trauma in my life, and I do believe that it eventually led to the divorce. Like this chronic pain injury took a heavy toll on my family. And so my parents divorced in like 2001, and I'm stumbling around in the world, and I get to this spiritual guy, and I basically share my story. And then in this process, the strangest thing happened. I really don't have an explanation for it other than this electricity-like experience went through my whole body. Very intense, very powerful, probably about 40 minutes. I have no idea what was going on. He wasn't touching me. We were just speaking, and this energy appeared out of nowhere. And I'm like, whoa, what the heck is going on here? Anyway, by another year, my wife and I have got engaged, and we had our first son, and I kept going deeper into the spirituality experience, and it kept causing problems because I would do things that were in alignment with a spiritual calling. And one day she was like, I was like, what did you think was going to happen? You knew that you were marrying me, that I was on this spiritual path. And she had the best line. She goes, "I just thought it was a phase you were going through." I'm like, Jesus. I love it. I love it. I love it. Eventually it clarified. I had a couple of significant events. I was brought up in a Christian family. My lineage actually goes back a couple of generations. There's whole like pastors and stuff like that, clergy. But I found it relatively dead. Like my family, at least my siblings and I weren't overly excited to go to church. And on Christmas Day, we had to go down like, okay, whatever. Didn't really get it. But eventually it became apparent. And this is where my wife's comment of "you are an atheist." I want to show you something. So normally I don't show you guys this, but anyway, I'll let you in. Here we go. So that is my screen. That's my laptop there. Now, just leave that there. So some of you might know who this is. This is a picture of some of you. Many of you may not. Eventually it became apparent that there was a driving force in my life, driving this spirituality, and that became resolved into a path. And it's the path of Hanuman. That's Hanuman, the monkey god. And it's a story, the epic of the Ramayana, where Hanuman takes birth, or actually Shiva, Lord Shiva, takes birth as a monkey. He's cursed, and he has to live out a lifetime as a monkey. So he appears at this auspicious time to help Lord Rama rid the world of demons. And so this book is quite famous in India. It's not that famous in the West. The most famous person who speaks of this is a gentleman that you may or may not have heard of, which is Ram Dass. And he had got kicked out of Harvard with Timothy Leary for taking too much LSD or doing experiments on LSD. And LSD then went out of fashion. And we're seeing an interesting resurgence, particularly here in Australia, around these psychedelics. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. You know, I know how this went with the opiates. If we look back to 2007, 2008, and suddenly the miracle of OxyContin was presented as a painkiller that didn't get addicted to, but now we can see there's a few problems with that. So I'm a little skeptical. Obviously, medical cannabis is going through the roof, but I see no particular reason to be at the forefront of this, other than my spiritual lineage has Ram Dass in it. And it's interesting. So Ram Dass found or was told about a book, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and I haven't read that, but they say that many of the experiences on these drugs lead to events described in the Tibetan Book of the Dead. And he went east, and there he met a saint, Neem Karoli Baba. And this saint's kind of interesting. Steve Jobs out of Apple, apparently, not sure if he met him or he went to the temple. And then Mark Zuckerberg has also been over there. So it's an interesting lineage. So the fact that my wife is like, "Hey, are you an atheist? But this is my screensaver." I'm like, okay, this is clearly not based in fact or truth. This is just a defense to see whether I'll bite, see whether I'll arc up. Now, interestingly, I was like, whatever. Okay, yep, you think I'm an atheist, that's fine. And I think it would have been hopeful for her at some level that I actually fought against her. Like maybe she was trying to pick a fight. But what I took from this is there's a confidence in me that I don't need to prove that I'm not an atheist. I don't need to prove it. I don't think I've ever shared this before. I don't know how many lives I've done. I've done a fair number. But there is in the old podcast days, there was a description of the triple path of the warrior. And this is a warrior path. And it's very deceptive because a lot of people associate Hanuman with kirtan, which is often associated with tea and biscuits and cake and food and sitting around chanting. It doesn't look so hard, but at its core, this is no doubt a warrior path. And then I've been on 2 other warrior experiences as a man. as a man. One is Mankind Project and the New Warrior Training Adventure, and the second is Wake Up Warrior. Both offering significant evolutions and growth into understanding what it is to be a man and who I am and what my mission is. But I still see the Bhakti path as the overriding warrior path. It is no easy path, but as it was shared to me, it was like if you are going to choose a guru or choose a spiritual path, then it's worthwhile looking to see where the devotees ended up. How did they go? Because there's certainly been many spiritual paths where the guru, in inverted commas, has ended up exploiting the devotees for sex or for money or for fame or for whatever else. So it's important to look at, well, hey, where did the people end up? So there's actually quite a few famous bhaktis you can look at. Krishna Das, Ram Das, Jai Uttal, Bhagavan Das. Bhagavan Das is, I read his book. He goes to India at 21, has everything stolen, meets Neem Karoli Baba, becomes a sadhu as a 6'5" Westerner, gets sent back to America and enters into the world of selling insurance door to door. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. How do you do that? How do you go from being a sadhu in India to door-to-door sales of insurance in America? And yet that is what happened. That's what happened for Bhagavan Das. So what's the benefit of this path? Well, the path of Hanuman is service to God, service to Rama. In the book, Rama is God. So Hanuman is seen as the servant of God, and he does many amazing things, but it's the energy of choosing to serve. And so when I do my best to listen to God speaking, and sometimes I get it wrong, it's very clear. I either hear God and don't do anything with it, or I hear my ego and think that's God, and then go do that. But sometimes, occasionally, I hear God and I do what God tells me, and it leads to a much richer life. What's this got to do with you as a doctor? Well, I don't know about you, but all of this spirituality training did not come from medical school. It did not even come from FRACGP or specialty training. This has all been a path outside of that. But it has been deeply rewarding, and it has revealed gifts that go far beyond what could be expected. And for you, should you choose to open up to the possibility that you also have some level of a spiritual path, even if you have no idea what that is, that this may offer us the ability to help our patients at a higher level. You see, instead of you having to do everything, perhaps you can allow God through. And you're still doing your job. You're still doing your surgery. You're still reading the x-rays. You're still diagnosing and treating. But when patients present with really difficult things, you have something to rely on. And this can be accessed through meditation. This can be accessed through questions. But I want to wake you up that if you see this video, then at some level your soul is calling you to become aware of this as a potential reality for you too. To wake up that perhaps this is a spiritual realm, even on this material plane. So I'm curious, where's your spirituality at? Are you Christian, Muslim, Jewish, practicing, not practicing. What are you up to? How does it help you in being a doctor? What's working? What's not working? Are you open to other ideas? Have you studied other ideas? Looked at Buddhism and Taoism, Judaism, even Hinduism? I'm not Hindu though. My relationship is very much direct. And there are these main characters of Ram Dass and Neem Karoli Baba and Hanuman and Sita and Rama, but ultimately I'm trying to work out my relationship with God, with life, with the universe, with source, whatever you want to call it. This thing that we find ourselves in, waking up to every day to walk around in and go, what is going on? What's this all about? So I'd encourage you to explore that. And if you want to follow my particular version of that that's being downloaded into me and I've learnt over the years, then you can go check that out over at GraduateMedicine.com. As we've spoken before, the value of medical knowledge and clinical skills and even clinical reasoning is decreasing. And yet the ability for you to access all of those plus your level of spirituality, now that is something that is extremely valuable to your patients. So head over to GraduateMedicine.com. That's all I got for you today. We've lost Hanuman, but he's still there. And I hope that you also have something spiritually that you can fall back on. That when times get tough and difficult, that there is a guiding force in your life. And if you haven't got that yet, then perhaps it's time. Start exploring. Start checking it out. All right, I'm going to go hang out with my kids. You have a great night. Catch you on another live very soon.